Well, hello everybody, and I'd like to add my welcomes to this year's OSCC. Our first presentation, so to speak, this year is from somebody I'm pretty sure most of you here will actually know. But for those of you who don't, her name is Melanie Milland, and she is one of the core developers, in fact, main core developer really, of the Open Simulator sort of code base, core developer, we call them. Melanie has been one of the most active contributors to virtual world software in general and OpenSimulator in particular. As her avatar, Melanie Milland, she was a long-time Second Life, resident and gained much experience using virtual worlds. Melanie has been involved in a number of virtual world projects, including creating, with a team of up to 12 developers, her own spin on the OpenSimulator software, which powered the Avination grid. The late Avination grid, I should say. Much of that grid's code, which she shared back into the core code, was the base for many of the new OpenSimulator 0.9 update features. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to her to let her deliver. Welcome, Melanie. Over to you.
Thank you. Much has been said already by Amal here about the history of things and the Avination grid, but there is one thing that is not yet open source, and I'm here today to announce that it will be made open source, and that is the viewer that we have started working on. Now, it's not like it's in any way functioning, but it's off to a good start, and somebody could take the ball and run with it. It would do us a lot of good, because we will definitely not suffer from loosening the ties to the Linden Labs viewer and adding something that, for instance, could be made to have a UI that is suitable for virtual reality for headsets. So it started humble. Really humble, in Unreal Engine with a couple of assets. So this picture, there's something wrong with it. We didn't figure out what it was until we found out everything was inside out. Everything was inside out in this picture. It's just sort of like cancel each other out. This is what it looked like in an actual grid. So we took these things, and that was the first thing that we tried to transpose into the Unreal Engine. We hit quite a few snags there, because the Unreal Engine has a different coordinate system for one. Left is right and right is left, I mean, some people are like that. So after a bit of trying around, not having any textures and colors and materials yet, we finally got the handle on the coordinates. So this is what one of the simulators in Avination looks like in Unreal Engine, all in gray. And then we went and added materials and colors, and actually were able to walk to those sims with a VR headset on, and it's just something that was like, wow, because I changed my whole view of the world. I've been in virtual worlds for such a long time, but seeing Avination, actually walking through Avination, this was a whole new dimension for me. It was like coming home. So this is me fine-tuning things. Texture offsets, texture rotations. You see the number textures on there and everything. This is the sim where I did all the work that I prepared to import into Unreal Engine and tweaked it to have it one on the one screen, one on the other screen, making them all look the same. And finally, ta-da! We had the Avination startup sim. Not good lighting yet. We tried working with that, and it didn't always work out. But eventually we got it to where we wanted to have it. This texture is not loading? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is where it stands at this point. We can display a scene. You can walk through the scene. We have no avatars yet, and it doesn't use the Linden Labs protocol. It wasn't designed to use the Linden Labs protocol because the Linden Labs protocol has been tying us up in knots for so many years, and most of the younger people actually laugh about our graphics quality because it's like 15 years old. Now, this isn't 15 years old. This is current technology. And this is going to be open sourced, probably on GitHub and under a permissive license. And I hope that somebody takes it to where I couldn't take it. I've had one other person work on this who you actually should know quite well, Ubit, the other very active core developer at the time. At this time, I mean. He did a lot of paid work on this project. And now I'm giving this to the community because it's just sitting in my drawer. I can't do anything with it, and I don't need it to get bit rot. So yes, that was the great news. Otherwise, I'm open to questions.
Okay, well, now I can unmute. Well, that Melanie, is absolutely wonderful news. Of course, I did sort of know this was coming a bit. I'm going to be checking for questions coming in on my other account, although actually I don't see any yet. So let me have a quick butchers, as they say, at the in-world chat here. First of all, I need to ask here now. I gather that this the bit of this you're going to be, well, the whole bit that you're actually open sourcing for somebody to sort of take up. It's all the component parts, really, isn't it, for a completely new interface? I mean, it doesn't mean people have to change their in-world content or anything like that in any way. This is, strictly speaking, an advanced viewer that will render already existing code.
Yes. It doesn't render it in exactly the same way. We've used Unreal Engine procedural materials to have most of the same effects, but it is a different look. It's fresher, brighter, and you can see it in the picture. I mean, the Linden Labs viewer never looked so good. And this is all the original content, except we have one thing about this. The Unreal viewer has real shadows, so now we have real shadows and fake shadows both. It's a bit funny at times. You know those shadow textures on the ground?
Yes, yes.
We won't need them for this anymore.
Right, the ones, the ones in that picture, for example, are they artificial shadows or are they the new lighting?
In the picture that we're seeing here right now, we have both the artificial shadows and the new lighting.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
That's the thing, as I'm saying, some things have double shadows.
Of course.
See the shadows under the palm trees?
Yeah.
Those are the artificial shadows, and the ones going off towards the back, where the light actually shines in, those are the ones that Unreal Engine produces. I'm hearing a lot of questions from the audience about links to the open source. I haven't had the time to put it up yet. But it will be appearing on GitHub, and it will be announced on the mailing lists and other media related to OpenSimulator. So nobody will miss out. And anybody who wants to not be left out should probably go to OpenSimulator Dev, because that's where I'll be posting the link as well in IRC. I don't know if anybody has a website or mailing list where they want to put it up once it's there.
Sure. Now, we just at 12:30, we will be having our sort of viewer panel beyond the viewer, as it is these days, which you'll be coming on. So so we'll be able to discuss with other people. Maybe Krista can join us too. The mechanics of the way this will work for people either taking up the code or modifying what you're opening up. It's rather overwhelming. It's hard to see where it's going.
I'm seeing a lot of questions here in
yeah,
the chat, and about lots of different subjects. First of all, the viewer doesn't have a UI per se yet. We did some work on having a UI that would be HTML5 based. However, it turns out that breaks with a VR headset, so it needs work. The idea is to have the UI loaded from the server and have the UI potentially be different for every sim.
Right.
And there's a question about Collada. There is no kind of upload or download functionality in it yet. It's basically just the code that allows us to render the OpenSim scene, which is the hardest part, really. The rest of it is just the drudge work of implementing the actual UI and implementing a network protocol, but the rendering was the hard nut to crack.
So if I'm suddenly thinking of a very good example here that came in originally with Second Life, of course, and we use it here in OpenSim, is something like Winlight, for example. Now, I gather with basically this will offer, for example, a region the possibilities to have something much more advanced than they can currently get just with Winlight, for example. So the viewer, the end viewer, will kind of shape itself to different environments according to what the owner of the environment wants.
That is for other people to code.
Yeah.
But yes, it can. Unreal Engine has amazing amounts of settings, and one could actually go ahead and say, okay, let's break the Linden Labs viewer, make a grid tailored to this new viewer, and support all the features of Unreal.
Right, now I'm used to, that is, well, at the risk of commenting on another product, there is a world, of course, called ScienceBase, run by one of OpenSim's founders, Adam Frisby. But we have an example there well, firstly, the interesting thing about it is because it's not the Unreal Engine, it's the other one, Unity. It does mean that they've got a WebGL version. It's not quite as good as the fully fledged one, but you can actually get to it on the web too. And is that going to be a possibility with the Unreal Engine?
To do what with it?
To have a version of it that people can get on a website in the same way that they get a WebGL version of ScienceBase.
No, Unreal doesn't support it at this point, I believe, unless it has developed further. But then the richness of content in OpenSimulator has always been prohibitive from doing it on a website anyway. WebGL only works with totally optimized content and not very much of it. So I don't think that OpenSimulator in WebGL is a viable proposition at all.
Right.
That's why we chose the Unreal Engine. We chose the Unreal Engine for a number of reasons over Unity, and one of the reasons was that it's C++, and that it just simply means it's just that little bit faster, and that it has the most advanced lighting model of all the game engines at the time we chose it.
Right. Now, Krista Lopez, of course, fellow developer here, very pertinent, actually. One of the things she has asked is, does she need a license to
And the Unreal Engine is free to download and free to use, even for development of commercial projects. But if you sell over a certain number of units, you have to pay royalties. However, this viewer is never going to be sold. It is free software. And therefore, there's no license required.
Okay, well, that is very good news because people can just basically dive in without worrying about coughing up money. Right. Yes. I'm getting sidetracked by Sun Tzu, for example, saying FBX works in Unreal 2. Will this also allow, now this is a tricky question, I suspect the answer is actually no, but I can see people getting excited here about the Unreal Engine's aspect to this. In other words, we're building a new viewer which is built on the Unreal Engine. But of course, we're not building a world in the Unreal Engine. So
Exactly.
people are actually asking whether like FBX can be imported and all that kind of stuff, because those are standards for the Unreal Engine. But I suspect the answer is no, because this is a viewer, not an Unreal Engine world.
That is correct, yes. Obviously, OpenSimulator could be expanded to be able to use FBX and not converted into JPEG 2000. But then again, that would be the situation where Grid says, okay, we're breaking compatibility with the Linden Labs viewer and just have only the new one.
Right. Something I think we will probably cover in the viewer panel a little bit, because we'll be looking at rules on the web and various things like that. Mr. Blue, for example, is weeping and saying he created an OAR to GLTF converter for importing OpenSim content into other viewers, etc. But again, I think the answer to that is that won't be necessary here, because the Unreal Engine is being used to build a new viewer. It's not being used to build a replacement for OpenSim as it exists. That's the fundamental difference.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, Graham Mills has asked, does LSL scripting work? Well, presumably, if
LSL scripting is server side.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Just needs to add an editor to the viewer to edit it.
Yeah, so anything that works at the moment will work in this viewer. It is a new viewer. It's not a new. It's the same. It's the same answer, isn't it? You know. Okay. All these tools.
It just needs a lot of work. But if some 15, 20 C++ coders got together, it would probably be viable within a few months.
Okay, well, Later Marshroom is downloading the Unreal Engine right at this very moment. So hopefully, if other people are doing that, we're off to a good start, I think. Okay. Krista, this is nice of Krista. She says, I think we all found our next project. Krista was on another panel about a week ago, and some of her talk was about the saving the environment with virtual worlds, obviously, but also the fact that she too is kind of refocusing a bit on we need a decent viewer. So I'd love to see what Krista can do with all this. Maybe she'll be able to join us on the after lunch panel. She's not billed for today's, but she's welcome to join us if she wants. Right. Maria, who we've just heard from, thank you for those wonderful stats, Maria. She actually specifically asked how much work remains to be done on this. Now, I don't know whether she's talking about man hours or the.
I answered it in text, and I answered it in voice already as well.
Yeah.
As I said, a small team may need a couple of months to make it actually work. We did the heavy lifting in terms of getting it to actually display, which was a lot of trial and error. We had to do things like, for instance, port Meshmerizer to C++ for it.
Right.
Otherwise, we couldn't have drawn prims.
Of course, you get me out of my depth now. Of course, I tend to have an overview on these things.
Meshmerizer is a prim mesher. It converts prims to mesh.
Oh, okay. Yes, I've come across the things now.
We're already using it in OpenSimulator in order to have the prims be meshes for physics.
Right.
Now here we're using it for display.
Okay. Yes. Joyce mentions Krista's talk last week. Mr. Blue, hang on, has a view button, opens another browser page with a simple thread 3 JSS viewer, which is WebGL. No, this has nothing to do with WebGL, has it? Right. Sorry, can you see? I'm scanning here to see if there's any questions I've missed. It's actually really difficult. Oh, hang on, I've got Liz's thread here too. Okay. Jim SA asks a question: loading the scene in what form DB? How complex is it to compare what is done by Japan University Unity. I think this is a too specific question for you, isn't it? Referencing something else.
I'm not sure what the Japanese have done with Unity, since that's something I've never even visited. Obviously, this is meant to eventually load the scene live from a server and also respond to live updates. At this time, it doesn't do that. It doesn't have a network stack yet. It's loading an XML serialization of the scene that is done by a piece of code that we didn't share because nobody could use the XML, but the piece of code, which is an OpenSimulator module, is going to be included in this dump so that everybody can make an XML of whichever region they're working on while they're working on making this viewer actually be a real online viewer.
Right. Leah Lobo has actually asked herself, basically, can the viewer be embedded? Oh, no, it's from Stefan. Can the viewer be embedded in a web page? But again, what's the point? It is a viewer. The world itself is still OpenSim. So
one could potentially do it as a web app, as they call it, meaning an app that you install and launch from a browser. Some people somehow feel more comfortable with doing it from a browser rather than launching an actual app. Me personally, I think that's humbug.
Yeah, I'm the other way around. I like to go into the virtual world, and then if I want to view a web page, I do it from inside the virtual world or parallel. Not the idea of going to a world on the web and clunking around. Although, of course, Mozilla are doing a lot of work on that now with Mozilla VR, so we'll see what happens there. Right. Okay. So just checking everybody's channel. Okay. Yes, I need to wrap now. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Got 8 minutes to go or something. Right. Okay. I'm just flashing through. Please get out of that. Get all my old messages after time. Okay. I think that's about it. I can see other messages coming in and stuff, but I think we've covered the main things. And as I say, you will also collect odd questions during the next few hours. And I've invited Melanie to join us on the 12:30 sort of extended viewer panel. So we'll be able to look at the way it relates to other things as well there. So my time is up, apparently. I'm looking at the clock waiting for the zeros, but of course I keep forgetting I've got to allow 10 minutes.
One thing that I wanted to say, I just remember one of the reasons we chose the Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
Because we have the possibility of eventually bringing this to consoles.
Right. That's...
I'm just
cool, isn't it?
VR.
Yeah, PlayStation, Xboxes, all that stuff, and presumably things mobiles. Although I'm still waiting for a beta test of SciSpace on the test flight, the iPad app. I don't think it replaces our headsets or big desktops or whatever, but the thing is, if the content's there, you want to really be able to get at it from anywhere, even if it's a lightweight experience when you're on the move and a fully immersive experience when you're embedded on the desktop or something. So something that's adaptable that way. And I know, for example, you can build something in Unity and deploy it a whole load of different ways. So once the project is built, be deployed presumably for the desktop as an alternative viewer, but maybe it can then be deployed, a variant of it can be deployed for use on mobile or something. I presume you agree with that. Could be done.
We have to see where this leads. It's something that we'll certainly be hearing of in the afternoon, and I believe somebody else wants to have this seat.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, Melanie, you've set the conference off with a bang, as we knew you would. So many thanks for all this, and we will hear more and see you later in the conference. So for now, at least,
you're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.